Welcome to Mr. Biz Radio, biz talk for biz owners. If you're ready to stop faking the funk and take your business onward and upward, this show is for you. And now, here's Mr. Biz, Ken Wentworth.
All right, welcome to another episode of Mr. Biz Radio. Me, Mr. Biz, Ken Wentworth, and we're gonna talk to an expert of course, this week on a topic that I know will resonate with all of you, and it resonates with me. I'll tell you that. So selfishly, I'm going to get a lot out of this episode myself. So I'm looking forward to it. But it is an expert this week who is going to help us in being able to sell our offers at premium and ultra premium prices. And who doesn't want that, right? What better way to grow your revenue than to be able to charge more for the products and or services that you offer? And so this week's guest is none other than Mrs. Kathryn Porritt. Sorry about that. And she's a global entrepreneur, business strategist, and founder of Icons Incorporated, which you can find at iconsincorporated.com. She's an expert in taking brands to the number one in their niche and becoming iconic, and is known as the $100,000 offer strategist, reshaping her clients' businesses to sell their offers at a premium and ultra premium price. Kathryn, welcome to Mr. Biz Radio.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. I am always here to talk about this topic. We should be charging at the highest possible price. Absolutely.
Yeah, well, it's funny. Well, you know what? Let me say that. So I'll say that later. Before we get into all that, and we talk about that, and you give us some tips on how to do that, especially during the third segment, and we discuss a little bit more of your approach and everything, maybe during the second. Tell us about your entrepreneurial journey, Kathryn. How did you come into this whole space?
Yeah, absolutely. So I started out with my first business, was a very successful e-commerce business when I was on maternity leave with my first baby, Penelope, who is now just about to turn 17.
Oh,
so
wow.
I started an e-commerce business then. It became quite a dominant business in Australia, won lots of awards, did the whole thing, was on TV, had hundreds of thousands of followers, all of those things, wrote the book literally for Penguin Viking. I remember a pivotal moment about 9 years in, when I was standing in the warehouse seeing all of these amazing people in my team picking all these orders, and everything was just flashing by. And I went, you know what? The fun has gone. I don't particularly want to play this volume game anymore. And so we decided to sell up at that point. I was very lucky to go through what a lot of people don't have the experience to go through as a full sale process. So I exited that business and then didn't want to sit around drinking Mai Tais on the beach. That's not my personality. So I spent the time to really think about, without any desperation from a financial standpoint, what do I really want to create from here? And in that creative state, I really felt that the best piece of my creativity, innovation, all of those things was best placed in creating luxury brands for the highest end of the personal brand space. So I want to play with really intelligent, extraordinary people. And I was lucky enough to launch the business, have a waiting list almost immediately. And then what I found really quickly was that most of the people that I was supporting, big names who you think might have this pricing thing down pat, not only needed my advice around branding, but they desperately needed my advice around how to price, how to create offers, and then how to create a sustainable high margin business. And that's really how the Icons Incorporated business was born.
And so it sounds like the transition from, the e-commerce and the volume, it was at the sort of the epiphany moment, like you mentioned, you're in the warehouse and you're like, man, all this flurry of activity. And
it was absolutely a pivotal moment in my life. I go back, you think about those maybe 2 or 3 moments that just change everything in your life. Having babies, getting married, all of those personal things. But to me, from a business standpoint, that was the one moment that changed everything for me. I'd been very successful. On paper, everything looked fantastic. But personally, it wasn't what I wanted anymore. I wanted to build a lifestyle business where I could be there for my children a bit more. My husband is also very successful, but he'd borne a lot of the weight of picking the kids up and running them around and all of those things. He's been extraordinary. So, it really was time for me to create a more lifestyle-based business. So I took the time to really think through, what does that mean, rather than creating something out of, desperation. This is what I ought to do. I actually looked inward and went, no, what do I want to create from here?
Well, I guess along those lines, and with the success you've had, let me shift gears a little bit. What has been, during your business career, what's been your favorite failure? What's the thing that you failed at that was maybe ended up being something that was another epiphany type moment in business?
Yeah, so similarly, with this business, I started thinking, as I had this big wait list, what do I do from here? We've got all this momentum in the marketplace. Everyone's talking about what we're doing. We've got this great reputation. All of these amazing people want to work with us. And I fell for that trap of, okay, how do I scale? Which was the complete antithesis of what I had said to myself when I started the business, right? And so I found, you're on Facebook and Instagram and you start Googling these things, and then suddenly I'm flooded with all of these scalable passive income, all of these group mastermind programs. And I went down that pathway, again, created something really successful. I'm really good at marketing. So I think anything I sort of put my fingers to is probably at the front end going to be quite successful. But again, I'd created a mastermind, I'd created this scalable program, and I went, what am I doing? 12 months into this thing. And I love the people we've been supporting in there. But really, I've, again, taken a really good, hard look at myself and gone, this isn't actually what I want. So while it's not a spectacular failure, it's been drinking out of a fire hose. It's not been fun to execute. We haven't done it in the most beautiful way as we've been finding our feet. It was very green in this area, but we've been very successful at the front end of it. But now, again, I'm reminding myself, this business is about what you want from here. Let's selfishly create something that serves you, your team, your clients, and your family at the highest possible level. So that's been another big reminder about not creating something out of ought or should do, but creating something that I just really want to create. And success, I've seen this over and over and over again, and you probably have too, when you're creating something that's built around that idea of who you are, what you really want, beyond passion. I have a client that says it's about devotion and obsession. If you can get to that point, then success is inevitable. And I've had to learn that lesson too many times, and I'm done learning it. I'm ready now just to take that learning and flow with it from here.
Well, it's interesting. So that was, like you said, not necessarily a failure from a business perspective, but you're trying to move out of the volume business, and here you are scaling and falling right back into what you had been, seeking to get out of. So yeah, it took you a couple of tries, it sounds like, to say, oh my gosh, why do I keep doing this? And because you're good at it. I mean, that's what it is, Kathryn. I mean, obviously you're good at it. And like you said, you get your marketing fingers on things and things start to go. And so very interesting. Love that answer. So again, this week we're talking with Kathryn Porritt. You can find out more at iconsincorporated.com, iconsincorporated.com. And you can also follow on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn to find out more. So we're going to hit a break here. We'll come back. We'll give the Mr. Biz tip of the week. And then we're going to dig into a little bit more about this whole concept between premium pricing and what that means versus, the more volume Walmart type of thing. So come back after the break on Mr. Biz Radio.
If you would like to reach hundreds of thousands of business owners every week, Mr. Biz Radio can help. Our show airs globally 7 days a week for more than 25 hours across several internet radio stations, plus 20 plus podcast platforms. Also, video exposure on the new exclusive Mr. Biz Network streaming channel, which gets blasted to 100 plus streaming platforms, and the Mr. Biz YouTube channel, and our 350,000 social media followers multiple times every week. Join Mr. Biz Nation as an advertiser by emailing us at info@MrBizSolutions.com.
Are you ready to automate your business? Automation is the key to scaling a business and building wealth. It's also one of the most difficult things for a small business owner to do on their own. If you're looking for help with automation, Pulse Technology CRM can help. We have an exclusive offer for Mr. Biz Nation. We will build everything for free, even if it's a sophisticated funnel. Visit thepulsespot.com/Mr. Biz for this exclusive offer.
Got a question for Mr. Biz you want answered on air? Email it to info@MrBizSolutions.com. Now, once again, here's Mr. Biz.
All right, welcome back to the show. It's time for Mr. Biz tip of the week, and this one's a short but sweet one and very important. And it is something that absolutely a lot of times as business owners, you get into the weeds of the business and you can easily forget this. And that is to focus on your strengths and hire experts for those things that are challenging to you, especially when you're first starting out, maybe as a solopreneur to start, you're trying to bootstrap and DIY everything. And it ends up being to the detriment of your business overall, because, first of all, things that you're not good at, you don't like to do, you're probably not good at, right? Because you probably don't put in the necessary effort, as Kathryn mentioned during the first segment, the passion, the obsession. And if it's something you don't enjoy doing, you're probably not going to do it very well. Why not bring in an expert who can probably do it way better than you, much more efficiently, much more cost effective overall. So that is the tip of this week. Focus on your strengths and hire experts for your weaknesses. So again, this week we're talking with Kathryn Porritt. Kathryn, I wanted to get into this a little bit in the whole concept of, I've heard so many people that are really successful talk about, and it seems completely counterintuitive to a normal person, but I'm sure you agree with this. They say it's actually easier to sell a higher ticket item than to sell, it's easier to sell, I had one guy on that I know reasonably well, and he said, for me to sell a $50,000 mastermind, it's actually easier than selling 1,000, $500 things. He's like, it's just so much easier. And so I'd like to hear sort of your thoughts around that.
Yeah, I fully, with all of my heart and soul, agree with that statement. So having been at both ends of the market, I can absolutely tell you that is much, much, much easier. There's less sort of frenetic activity. There's less time and energy that needs to go into it. And there's almost no competition because everyone is competing for the $27, the $2,000, the $8,000, and thinking that they're onto a great big winner if they're charging $15,000. And I can tell you that almost no one is competing for the 100,000, the million, the 40 million, the 63 million, like my clients are doing. They're just not brave enough to go there, or they don't know, they have no evidence that there is that possibility that you can charge that much. But from my perspective now, having worked with hundreds and hundreds of founder brands, so coaches, authors, athletes, creatives, consultants, agency owners who can get really clear on who it is that they want to work with and get really crystal clear on how they are best in the world, what they are best in the world at, and then can clearly articulate that to the market. There is a market up there that is willing to pay any sort of price just to experience that sort of proximity to an extraordinary brand or an extraordinary level of expertise. And I've just seen it in every niche. I'm yet to have someone come to me and say, that this niche cannot be sold into the highest end of the market, and for my team not to be able to figure out a way to make that happen. So I fully concur with your friend there. That is absolutely my experience as well.
Yeah, and what I've even found in my own businesses is that, and I'll be a little dramatic about this and humorous about it, but the person who's buying something that's $50 or $100 versus someone who's buying something that's $25,000, $40,000, $50,000, the $40,000 or $50,000 person, once you are able, as you said, to articulate it well, the question they ask is, so who do I make the check out to? Whereas the person who's buying a $50 item says, now exactly what do I get for $50? Now, when will that be delivered? Well, I have it by next to, it's like, oh my gosh, like you said, the friction in the market is so vastly different between both of those ends of the spectrum.
Yeah, I was just supporting one of my new clients who sold $1 million coaching offer after working with me for 5 weeks. So that number is real. and doable. But I was actually listening to her pitching the call and giving her some feedback for next time. And the mistake that she made on that call was, here's a guy that's worth a really ultra high net worth individual she was selling to. And he said, I want this, this, and this. And she said, okay, here's all the things that I'm going to put in there. And she was giving him the kitchen sink, which I'd advised her not to do. But we get, you know, when you're selling something for $1 million for the first time, I totally get that. And I've seen that happen all the time. But she was saying, you can have this time with me and this and this and this and this. And he said, you're misunderstanding me. I want less of you. I just want to know how potently, how powerfully we can work together in less time. And it was that pivotal moment for me. If I can give you any sort of advice about this end of the market, that's how they buy. It's efficiency and effectiveness at the highest end of the market. It's all about time and that proximity to power and expertise and all of those things. So you're absolutely spot on.
Yeah, and I experienced the exact same thing. I had a product that was a $500 a month product, and then, you know, selling the much higher end, tens of thousands of dollars, and I did the exact same mistake.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because again, that was the first time I was selling something it was a $60,000 product, and it was like, holy crap, like I got to give so much value. I'm like, you can, and, you know, I'll be dramatic about it, but I was like, you can call me 24 hours a day. I'll answer the phone in the middle of the night. I'll do anything you want. I'll give you a foot rub. And the same thing, and the same exact scenario. The owner was like, look, I appreciate all that. I don't want it. I want efficient time with you. And I want to know when we're together, I want to know you're going to be on time and we're going to spend exactly this amount. If you tell me 60 minutes, no offense, I don't want to spend 90 minutes with you. My time is valuable. I want to know the 60 minutes is going to be super valuable. I don't want 3 hours with you. I want to make it super efficient and condensed. And so I made the exact same mistake the first time. So I totally get it. But again, that mindset of, man, for that price, I have to just, again, throw in the kitchen sink. I got to give everything. And that's those people, you know, and that stratosphere, that's not what they want.
No, they absolutely do not. And you're 100% right. At the lower end of the market, there's, you know, how do I get all of these bits and pieces, and, you know, how do I manipulate time and all of those things? I always get my clients to work at the 80% plus end of the market. So people who are 80% there or above. And then you mitigate all of those problems of, you know, if you're in the business space, you're not dealing with people who have a low business acumen, for example. You're not having to deal with the lower end 101 teaching part of this, but actually the people who probably could get there without you, but they just want that stretch and that expansion of vision, and for you to give them the expertise to really go at a higher level more quickly. And then that higher end of the market will pay anything if you can pitch that right. You're 100% right. It's been my experience over and over and over, and hundreds of these deals, even ones that are worth multi-millions of dollars. I've clients that have landed deals that are $40 million for one coaching opportunity. So that's been 100% my experience across the board.
Yeah, it's just super interesting. I've got one client that I literally meet with. It's almost like a personal trainer. Like, I think a lot of people hire a personal trainer for accountability for themselves, because they know if they're paying for a trainer, they're going to show up to the gym. They could probably go to the gym and train themselves, but they know the accountability. And it's the same thing. I've got one client. I meet with him once a month for 90 minutes. I go to his office and we put our cell phones outside, and it's just to do a strategic session. And he said, I know I won't do it if I don't have you to keep me accountable to this. And again, he pays a high premium for it. So exactly what we're talking about. Again, this week, we're talking with Kathryn Porritt. You can find out more at iconsincorporated.com. Come back and she's going to give us tips on how to sell our products and offerings at a premium price.
How would you like to have direct access to Mr. Biz to help you run your business more profitably and more efficiently? At MrBizSolutions.com, you get live access to not only Mr. Biz, but also several of his hand-picked and trusted business experts, each with 20 plus years of experience to help you optimally manage and grow your business. That's just the start of where Mr. Biz Solutions begins. Learn more at MrBizSolutions.com. That's MrBizSolutions.com.
Business owners have a continually growing to-do list with little time for revenue-producing activities. With Check Off Your List and their experienced team of virtual assistants, you can focus on growing your business. Visit checkoffyourlist.com to learn how Check Off Your List skilled team can handle your day-to-day tasks like social media, bookkeeping, calendar maintenance, and much more. Contact Check Off Your List at checkoffyourlist.com or call 888-262-1249 to see how their virtual assistants can help you live to work rather than work to live.
Check out all 3 of Mr. Biz's best-selling books at MrBizBooks.com. Now, once again, here's Mr. Biz.
All right, welcome back to the show. So, Kathryn, let's dive in. So, we've only got 9 minutes, roughly 9 minutes, and I know you have a lot to share on this stuff. I know you talk a lot about magnetic marketing and commercializing your influence and things like that. But what are some tips that we can do to start to transform our business and be able to charge those premium prices?
Yeah, absolutely. The first thing to do is actually create from you. So true innovators, true creators, the leaders in the market don't look at what the market, where the gaps in the market are and look to fill it and then expect to be paid these high prices. They're actually brave innovators. So this is probably the biggest tip that I would give you is actually go brave into what do you want to do? What do you represent? What are you best in the world at? And then get very clear on articulating that and positioning it in a way that will resonate with an ultra high net worth individual or the highest end of the market. That's the biggest thing that we need to work on from a branding perspective. It's got nothing to do with colors, logos, personal style, all of those things matter. But ultimately, it's about that create from you, because mainstream comes from listening to your audience and looking at your competition. Luxury and iconic and ultra premium strategy comes from you. So that's really the biggest one. The other one is to really stand in some arrogance here. So what I mean by that is you can't go into a sales conversation or market yourself as the iconic leader of a niche, the dominant brand in a niche, and sit there all humble in the corner and, pretending that you're not all of those fantastic things. Every one of my clients who are selling at this type of level, you don't land a $40 or $60 million client without really knowing with absolute and utter certainty that you are the absolute best person in the world, and with utter integrity that you get those results and that you will be the right person to work with this client or on this deal to get that outcome. So I say to my clients all the time, arrogance is welcome here. Might be the only place in the world that it's welcome, but I'm going to get you used to stepping into that level of certainty and that confidence so that you can walk into any room and you become this magnetic, brand for any type of deal at the highest end of the market. I think another one is then also really making sure that if you're going to step into this, that you condition your team and you create a magical world, because this whole thing can fall down if you're representative of this end of the market and you're selling at this, this high level, but then all of your team aren't conditioned to the same thing. If they're looking at you and seeing you land this $40 million deal, and then all of the magic around that, the sales, the payment links, all of that falls down, then ultimately you're not going to keep that client for very long. So we talk about this idea of conditioning your team, magical world, making sure that everyone is at peace with abundance and wealth and all of those things. And this goes to really being an incredible leader as well for your entire team. So I think that that's incredibly important. Culture is very, very important part of your brand and how you sell and how you work with your clients in the longer term and keep them for life. Another one that I feel is the most important is invitation style marketing. So most mainstream businesses sit there and wait passively for a lead to come through. So if you imagine, just use a coach as a really good example of this. Most of the mainstream marketing methodology will have you run, say, Facebook ads to some sort of webinar or some sort of lead generation, SLO funnel, etc. And then you're sitting there waiting for them to go through some sort of automation, and then passively, put my hand up or pushing them towards a call. And that was how I used to run my e-commerce business. And my mood was based on a daily basis on how many leads were coming through, how many sales we were doing, right? And I'd be up and down and all over the place. And I must have been a nightmare for my team to be around. What I really like about the way that we market and that we teach our clients to market at this highest end is that it really is about picking and choosing who you want to work with. There's probably this very small handful of people or companies that you want to work with or organizations that you want to work with at this level. And so going and researching them and understanding them, creating a dossier, and then figuring out how to pitch to them is really, and then inviting them into your world in a really beautiful way. When you're standing in that arrogance and you're standing in that level of confidence, for them to be chosen by someone of your ilk and pitched to actually feels amazing versus that sort of spammy LinkedIn, outreach sequence stuff that's so big at the moment. This is really choosing the people that you want to be working with at the highest level. And I literally have a talent acquisition manager on my team whose job full-time is to look at the market and pick out the up and coming icons. And that's our entire marketing strategy, is just go and find the up and coming people and then tell them about what we do, bring them to a workshop or an event or something that we're running. And then our conversion rate is ridiculously high because we've pre-qualified before we even bring anyone into our world. So I think if you were just to implement those things, you could land some pretty significant deals.
So I mean, the things you mentioned, as you were talking through those, Kathryn, I'm thinking about people and brands and businesses across many different industries that are that upper echelon type brand, and they fit all the things you mentioned. Especially one of the things that, the standing in arrogance, Lamborghini, they don't have commercials because they don't need them. Mm-hmm. Right. And people, they have a wait list for cars, $300,000 plus cars. Rolls Royce, I mean, they do very little marketing, spending money on, you don't see a television commercial for Rolls Royce because, for the most part, people watching some sitcom at 8:00 at night, that's not a Rolls Royce customer. And so they know their brand. And then, the magical world thing you mentioned, I think is very powerful, because when you are paying a premium and you're willing to do that for a Rolls Royce level experience, it better be a Rolls Royce experience or you're going to go out of business. It has to be completely flawless. And so I think that's another big, really important aspect of this that probably some people don't really get as they move into this, sort of premium pricing mode.
Absolutely. And when I started this business, I spent a lot of time really looking at, a mainstream model versus a premium model versus a luxury model. And being an entrepreneur who's had decades of experience now, I'm really interested in the ways that work for other businesses. And I wanted to sort of mitigate the time and energy put into this business to make it really work really quickly. And what I realized at the luxury end of the market is that there's so much certainty and control in the way that these brands are set up. I was like, no one's doing this for personal brands. This makes perfect sense to me. So you are absolutely 100% spot on. And it's just worked its socks off over and over and over in every niche that we've ever been involved in. So if you can take some of that luxury business strategy and implement that for yourself, you'll be so far above everyone else in the marketplace. There's every chance that you'll be that dominant brand.
Yeah, I mean, again, there's so many commonalities between those luxury brands. And there's, again, a lot of lessons to be learned, and you touched on several of them. But again, this week we've been talking with Kathryn Porritt. You can find out more at iconsincorporated.com, iconsincorporated.com. Kathryn, we are out of time, but thank you so much for coming on. Very insightful. We really appreciate you coming on.
I appreciate it so much. This has been so much fun. I really, really do.
Awesome. Well, guys, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Have a great week. And don't forget, as always, cash flow is king.
To become part of Mr. Biz Nation. Follow him on all social media platforms or never miss a show by going to MrBizRadio.com. If you prefer free video content, visit the Mr. Biz YouTube channel or check out his streaming channel, which is available on 100 plus streaming platforms at MrBizNetwork.com.